I tried to keep my late husband's estate in the family by giving everything to my daughter and myself, but our son's name was still on the will, and the lawyer said my husband had other plans. My husband David passed away 3 months ago. We were married 33 years. I'm 58, he was 60 when he died, and I honestly thought I knew everything about the man, until the will reading turned my entire life upside down. We have 2 children. Emily, our daughter, is 30. She's always been my right hand. Smart, organized, loyal, and the kind of daughter every mother dreams of having. She stayed close, visited often, helped me through everything after David got sick. Then there's our son, Mark, 27. We used to be close too, but the last few years, not so much. Mark drifted. He didn't like how we handled things, the way we lived, the way we spent money, the way David managed the family's finances. He said we never planned ahead and accused us of being financially reckless. He started acting like his father's little advisor near the end. It hurt. Emily and I felt pushed out of every discussion. David handled everything financial, always did. I never minded. He was meticulous, old-fashioned. He used to tell me, "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll take care of everything," and I believed him. He'd built a small empire, some investments, 2 rental properties, retirement funds, and our home, all paid off. He worked hard, and I trusted that when he passed, everything would come to me and Emily. After all, we were the ones there for him. We were his family. But apparently David had other plans. When he died, I contacted our family lawyer, Mr. Kellerman, who'd handled everything for decades. I expected it to be simple, estate to spouse. Spouse divides as she sees fit. Emily and I went together to the first meeting, both of us grieving but trying to focus on the practical things. I remember telling her, "Once this is settled, we'll be okay. Your father always took care of us." Then Kellerman opened the folder and started reading, and my stomach dropped. The estate wasn't being left to me, not entirely. It was being split 3 ways, between me, Emily, and Mark. Each of us equal heirs. At first, I thought I misheard him. I asked, "You mean Mark gets a small portion?" Like a gesture, he said, "No, Mrs. Turner, equal shares." Equal. As if my husband and I hadn't built our life together for 3 decades. As if my son, who barely visited, who criticized our choices and left me to handle everything when his father was dying, deserved the same as his mother and sister. I was stunned. I asked if this was some mistake. Kellerman said, "David was very clear. He wanted both his children treated equally." That's when I realized Mark must have gotten to him. He'd been spending a lot of time at the hospital in those final months, talking quietly in corners, running errands for David. I figured he was trying to reconnect. Now I wonder if he was manipulating. I told Kellerman I wanted to discuss moving the assets into a family trust, something Emily and I could manage, keeping everything in the family until Mark was ready to handle money responsibly. He said I couldn't. The will had specific stipulations. Then he dropped the real bomb. David had left a sealed letter with his will. A letter of intent, as he called it. Kellerman said he was instructed to read a portion to us during probate. He opened it and read aloud. "My son, Mark, has proven capable and responsible. He will manage my business interests, including my shares and rental income, effective immediately. I trust him to honor his obligations to the family." Emily gasped. I was speechless. Capable? Responsible? David barely spoke to Mark for years until he got sick. And manage the business? Those were my husband's words. Manage. Meaning he just handed over control of everything that produces income. I felt humiliated. Emily looked furious. She said, "He's putting Mark in charge of everything? That's insane." Kellerman just shrugged like it wasn't his problem. I asked if David was even in his right mind when he made those changes. He said David had been completely lucid and handled the documents privately months before his death. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. I left that meeting shaking. Emily and I sat in the car for almost an hour, just trying to process it. She kept saying, "He must have been pressured. Dad would never do that to us," and I agreed. David wasn't cruel, but he could be stubborn. And when it came to Mark, he'd always had a soft spot, even when Mark was disrespectful. Mark, of course, knew about all of this. When I called him, he didn't even sound surprised. He said, "Mom, Dad talked to me about it." He didn't want a repeat of what happened with Grandpa's inheritance. That made me livid. He was referring to years ago when my father left me a small sum, and I invested in a business that didn't pan out. It was decades ago. Ancient history. David never forgave me for that loss, but I always thought he'd moved on. I guess not. Mark said, Dad wanted to make sure the assets were managed properly. I asked, "Properly? Are you implying I can't be trusted?" He said, "I'm saying Dad trusted me." I hung up on him. It's insulting. I supported that man for 33 years, raised his children, stood by him through cancer, worked part-time so I could be home when he needed me. And this is how he repays me? Giving my son control like I'm some irresponsible teenager? Emily and I talked it through, and she said we should contest it. "You're his widow. You have rights," she said. And she's right. I don't want to destroy the family, but I can't sit back and let Mark play landlord and accountant over what's rightfully ours. Kellerman keeps saying the will is airtight, but I'm not so sure. David wasn't thinking straight near the end. He was on medication, drifting in and out. I think Mark influenced him. Maybe not directly, but subtly, planting ideas, making him doubt me. I've decided to meet with another lawyer this week to see if there's anything we can do to amend or contest the distribution. I don't want to cut Mark out completely. I just want to make sure Emily and I are secure, that things stay stable, and that the estate stays in the family, because that's the part no one seems to understand. I'm not being greedy. I'm protecting what David and I built. Mark has always been impulsive and cold with money. He talks about investing and restructuring, but all that means is risk. And I refuse to see our future gambled away because David suddenly decided our son was some financial prodigy. I know people will say he had his reasons, but I was his wife. If there were problems, why didn't he talk to me about them? Why did he blindside me from the grave? It feels like betrayal. I keep replaying the moment the lawyer read those words. Mark has proven capable and responsible. I can't get it out of my head. I spent my life keeping this family together, and now it feels like my husband handed me a lifetime sentence of being treated like I'm the problem. I'm going to fight this, not for greed, not for revenge, but because I know David's true intentions. He wanted our family secure, not divided. And if that means challenging this will to make sure the right people are in control, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. Am I wrong for wanting to keep things fair? For wanting to make sure my husband's legacy doesn't fall into the wrong hands, even if those hands belong to my son? Sure, here's update 1 fully expanded to 1,000 plus words in the same defensive, emotional, and self-assured tone from the widow's POV. OP still doesn't see herself as the problem yet. She's trying to stand her ground while her image of herself as protector and victim starts to crack at the edges. Update 1. It's been a min since my original post, and I've been through hell trying to sort out the mess my late husband left behind. I thought after grieving my husband, the hardest part was over, but now I feel like I'm fighting both my son and the ghost of the man I married. After my first post, I met with a second attorney, one recommended by a family friend who said he was aggressive with estate matters. I brought all my documents, David's will, the letter of intent, and a list of accounts I knew about. I sat across from him for 2 hours while he read everything in silence. Finally, he said, "Mrs. Turner, this is watertight." I couldn't believe it. He told me David had been thorough, almost too thorough. Every detail was mapped out. The estate was divided equally, yes, but he'd also tied control of most of the investments and rental income to something called a trust administration clause, meaning Mark now legally manages several of our financial assets, including the rental income we used to rely on. The attorney said David had even set up oversight provisions to prevent unauthorized withdrawals before his death. When I asked if there was any chance of contesting it, he said we could try, but it would be expensive and likely fail. He also said, in a tone I did not appreciate, that sometimes wills reflect a lack of trust more than a lack of love. I left that office shaking. I didn't tell Emily everything right away. She's emotional, like me, and I didn't want her spiraling. But when I told her the basics, that Mark was now in charge of managing our finances, she lost it. She said, "So he's our boss now?" That's what it feels like. Like I'm suddenly an employee in my own life, waiting for permission from my son to access what my husband and I built. A few days later, Mark called me out of the blue. His tone was businesslike, cold. He said he wanted to touch base and clarify some things. Clarify what? I didn't even know what I was allowed to touch anymore. He said, "I understand you've been talking to lawyers. I'm open to a discussion, Mom, but I'm not signing anything that changes Dad's wishes." The way he said Dad's wishes, like I didn't know what David wanted, like I wasn't the one who shared a bed, a house, a life with him for 33 years. I told him flatly, Your father would never have wanted his wife begging for her own money. He said, Dad trusted me for a reason. That was it. That's when I lost my temper. I told him, You've been manipulated, Mark. Your father was sick. You were in his ear every day feeding him nonsense about me and your sister. He was not in a sound state of mind. He said, Mom, that's not true. You're rewriting history. I hung up on him. After that, Emily told me to stand my ground. She kept saying, he's treating you like you're incompetent. And maybe she's right, but she's also young, and I don't think she understands how humiliating it is to need your own child's approval to pay a property tax bill, because that's what happened next. A week later, I went to pay the taxes on our lake cabin, the one David and I used to visit every summer. I logged into our joint online account and saw that several transfers were marked pending administrative hold. When I called the bank, they said those funds were temporarily frozen pending probate verification. Mark had frozen them. He said it was standard procedure until the estate was officially cleared, but I've spoken to enough people to know he had a choice. He chose to lock me out. I accused him of financial abuse. I texted him that exact phrase. He replied with, Mom, this is exactly why Dad did what he did. That text made my blood boil. The next day, he sent me a spreadsheet. Yes, an actual spreadsheet, showing account transactions from last year. Every expense, every transfer, every medical payment. And highlighted in red were 3 withdrawals from David's investment account, each for several $1,000s. He asked, Can you explain these? I almost dropped my phone. Those withdrawals were mine, money I took out during David's illness to cover hospital bills, repairs, groceries, things he knew about. I told him exactly that, but Mark implied otherwise. He said, Dad's records don't show any notes approving those transactions. Did he authorize them verbally? I said, Of course he did. I was his wife. He said, Then why did he bring them up to me last summer, asking if I knew where the money went? That's when my stomach turned cold. He must have been talking to David behind my back, whispering doubts, feeding him paranoia while he was weak and medicated. And David, in his condition, probably believed him. I called Emily sobbing. She was furious, not at me, but at Mark. She posted something vague on Facebook that said, Some people show their true colors when there's money involved. Half our relatives saw it. That same evening, my sister-in-law called asking what was going on. She said Mark had reached out to clarify things and told her I was mismanaging the estate. That's when I realized this wasn't just family drama anymore. He was trying to turn people against me. By the end of the week, half the family had picked sides. My brother said I should let it go because David knew what he was doing. My cousin called Mark a snake, and my mother, God bless her, she's 82, said, Maybe David just wanted peace, dear. Peace? Peace doesn't come from betraying your wife and putting your son in charge of her life. I've tried reaching out to Mark since then. He won't answer calls. The only thing he sends are status updates from the trust account, like I'm some client, not his mother. One email even started with, Dear Mrs. Turner. I nearly threw my laptop. Emily told me I should stop trying to reason with him and hire a forensic accountant. She thinks if we can prove he's being manipulative or using the funds to his advantage, we can push for a review. But the truth is, I don't have the money to wage a legal war right now. So I'm stuck, watching my late husband's estate, our estate, being picked apart by the son who thinks he's saving it from me. And the worst part, people are starting to believe him. When I vented about this online, most of the responses were brutal. Strangers telling me I'm greedy, that the will speaks for itself, that I'm lucky to have been left anything, as if being married for 3 decades, raising a family, and sacrificing my own career means I'm lucky to get a third of what I helped build. Number. I won't accept that. I may not have managed the numbers, but I kept the family together. I made the house a home. I was there when David got sick, when Mark was too busy building his career to visit. I've earned every piece of this life. I don't know how to move forward yet, but I do know this. I'm not giving up. David may have had his reasons, but I don't believe he intended to turn his wife into a beggar. He wanted us safe, all of us. Somewhere along the way, his plans got twisted. I'm going to keep fighting, even if everyone thinks I'm the villain for it. Because I'm not the villain here. I'm the one trying to protect what's left of my family from its own arrogance, and I'll keep doing it, with or without Mark's approval. Update 2. It's been 2 months since I last posted, and the situation with Mark has only gotten worse. The estate is now finalized. I thought that would bring some peace, or at least some clarity, but it's only made everything feel more humiliating and coldly transactional. According to the court documents and the trustee's final report, Mark now officially has managerial authority over all of David's rental properties and investment accounts. He's the executor of those holdings, meaning my own son can tell me what I can and can't access. Meanwhile, Emily and I received our equal shares, a lump sum each, separate from the rest of the estate. It sounds generous on paper, but in practice, we can't touch the larger assets without Mark's written approval. Kellerman, the original lawyer, told me this was exactly how David wanted it. "Mrs. Turner, your husband wanted to ensure long-term security," he said. "This structure prevents overspending or liquidating capital unnecessarily." Overspending. That word made my stomach twist. He said it so easily, like I was some spoiled socialite. When I told Emily, she practically slammed her phone against the wall. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Dad died and left us a babysitter instead of a will. That's what it feels like, being treated like children." We've had to email Mark multiple times to approve basic things, releasing rent payments, transferring funds for maintenance on the lake house. Every time it takes days for him to respond. When he finally does, his replies are curt and professional. "I'll review this when possible," or "Please provide receipts." Receipts. From my own son. I told him he was being cruel, dragging his feet just to assert control. He said, "I'm following Dad's instructions. You'll thank me one day." No, I won't. About a month ago, things blew up publicly. Emily posted on her social media something emotional about grief and betrayal. It wasn't detailed, but anyone who knew us could read between the lines. She wrote, "When you lose a parent and your brother decides your mother's pain is his business project, you realize blood doesn't mean loyalty." It got shared. A lot. Relatives started calling. My sister-in-law said we were being dramatic, that Mark was honoring his father's wishes. Others told me they supported us, that Mark was showing his true colors. I felt vindicated for a moment, finally people seeing it from our side. But then Mark called. He was furious. "Do you realize what Emily's done?" he said. "She's made this public. Tenants have seen it. People are gossiping." I told him, "Maybe you should have thought about the optics before cutting off your family." He said, "You and Emily aren't victims here. You're beneficiaries. Stop pretending Dad wronged you." I shouted back, "Your father promised to take care of me. This isn't what he meant." There was a long pause before he said quietly, "He did take care of you, Mom. You just don't like how he did it." Then he hung up. A few days later, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a photocopy of a handwritten note, dated a few months before David passed. It was addressed to Mark, in David's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. It said, "If you're reading this, I want you to know I love you. But I can't let history repeat itself. Your mother and sister will be provided for, but you must protect what I built. I trust you to do what's right, even when it's hard." That was all. No signature beyond Dad. I sat there holding that letter, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called Emily immediately and read it to her. She said, "That's manipulation. Classic Dad. He never trusted anyone." But I couldn't stop thinking about one phrase: "Let history repeat itself." Because I knew exactly what history he meant. Years ago, when we were in our 40s, I made a terrible mistake. I took out a private loan under my name to invest in a boutique business one of my friends was starting. I thought it was a great opportunity, something that would help us diversify our income. I didn't tell David until months later, after the business went under and the bank started calling. He was furious. I mean truly furious. I'd never seen him like that. He didn't yell. He just looked at me like he didn't recognize me. For months afterward, he took over every bill, every account, every budget. He never said it outright, but I could tell. He never fully trusted me with money again. I used to tell myself he got over it, that he understood I was just trying to help. But now, reading that letter, I realized he hadn't forgotten. And maybe, deep down, I always knew that. Mark must have known I'd seen the letter, because the next morning, he emailed me. "I hope you understand now why Dad structured things this way. It's not about punishment, it's about preservation. I'm not doing this to hurt you." I didn't reply. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of thinking he'd educated me. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over the last year of David's life in my head. The quiet conversations he had with Mark. the way he'd change the subject when I asked about finances, the way he'd tell me everything's handled. It wasn't paranoia. He'd been planning this, preparing for me not to be in charge. And that hurt more than anything else, because it wasn't just about the money, it was about trust. It meant that after 3 decades together, he didn't believe I was capable of managing what we'd built. Emily still refuses to accept it. She said, he was sick. He wasn't thinking clearly. She blames Mark completely. She even drafted a public post accusing him of financial control and family betrayal, but I stopped her from posting it. I told her we've done enough damage. And for the first time since David died, I realized I didn't sound angry when I said it. I sounded tired, because maybe Mark's right about one thing. Maybe Dad didn't trust me for a reason. That thought makes me sick. I want to reject it, to believe this is just Mark twisting everything for control, but it's hard to ignore that I did hide things from David. I did make financial mistakes and try to smooth them over. And if I'm honest, I might have done it again if I'd been left in charge. Not out of greed, out of fear, out of habit. Still, I can't shake the feeling that David went too far. There's protecting your legacy, and then there's punishing your wife from the grave. Mark hasn't called since that last email. Emily barely speaks to him. I heard through a relative that he's been renovating one of the properties, adding accessibility ramps, saying it's what Dad wanted. He's also restructured the investment accounts. Apparently they're performing better than ever. That's what stings the most. He's good at it. He's proving David right. Meanwhile, Emily's inheritance is almost gone. She bought a new car, paid off her credit cards, helped me cover a few bills, and now she's realizing it's not endless. She keeps saying, Dad should have left me control. I could have done this better, but I can see the panic in her eyes every time her bank app pings. And me? I'm caught in the middle, angry, ashamed, and more alone than I've ever been. I still believe David meant well. I think he wanted to protect us, but he never understood that protection without trust just feels like control. Still, as much as I hate to admit it, I'm starting to see that maybe, just maybe, he knew more than I did. He knew I wasn't ready to let go of the illusion that I could handle everything. He knew someone would have to step in when he was gone, and he picked Mark. I don't forgive him for that yet, but I'm starting to understand it. Final update. It's been 6 months since my last post, and I finally feel like I can talk about what's happened without shaking or crying halfway through. When David died, I thought I'd lost my partner. When the will was read, I thought I'd lost my dignity. Now I understand that what I really lost was control, and maybe that was the point all along. Things between Mark and me fell apart completely after the last argument. It happened 3 months ago. Emily had been staying with me on and off, and our finances were getting tight. We were trying to get one of the old rentals repaired so we could move in temporarily and save on bills. I'd emailed Mark about releasing funds from the property account to cover the work. He refused, said it wasn't a necessity. That word again. I told him, you wouldn't know necessity if it hit you in the face, you smug little accountant. He said, it's not about me, Mom. It's about Dad's plan. I lost it. I told him his father was gone, that it was time for him to stop playing God with our lives. I called him heartless and ungrateful, said if his father could see the way he was treating me, he'd be ashamed. He didn't yell back. He just said, you don't know half of what Dad told me, and hung up. That was the last time we spoke for months. Emily called him soulless. I agreed, but deep down, something about the way he said that stuck with me. I didn't know half. Maybe I didn't want to. In the months that followed, everything unraveled. Emily's inheritance went fast, faster than I expected. She paid off some old debts, helped me with a few lingering bills, and then started dipping into it for essentials that weren't really essential. A new laptop, a vacation with friends, new clothes to reset her life. I didn't blame her at first. Grief makes you do strange things, but soon she was calling me in tears, saying her savings were almost gone. I told her to call Mark. She said she'd rather beg on the street. It was around that time I started noticing the cracks in my own finances. The house needed repairs. The taxes were overdue. My part-time bookkeeping job wasn't enough to cover everything, and the market was too unpredictable to rely on interest alone. For a while I told myself I'd manage. I always have. But the truth is, I started losing sleep, lying awake at 3 a.m., wondering if David had known this would happen, if this was why he didn't trust me. Maybe he saw how easily Emily and I spent when money felt endless. Maybe he knew that once he was gone, we'd look for comfort in things, not structure. I didn't want to admit that then. I do now. Last month, I got a notice from the county. My property taxes had been overdue long enough that they were considering putting a lien on the house. I felt sick. I called Kellerman's office to ask if any of David's estate funds could be used to cover it. They said no, not without Mark's authorization. I didn't want to call him. My pride wouldn't let me. But the idea of losing my home, the house I raised my kids in, was worse. So I sat at the kitchen table and drafted the text 3 times before sending it. Mark, I know we haven't spoken. I need your help. The taxes are overdue and I'm out of options. I don't want to lose the house. He didn't respond that night, or the next day. I assumed he'd ignored me out of spite. But a week later, I checked my account, and there it was. A payment marked County Property Office, paid in full. I thought it was an error. I called the office. They confirmed payment had been made by wire transfer from a private trust account under my late husband's name, the one Mark now controlled. That's when I lost it. I drove to his office downtown. No appointment, no warning. I walked in and demanded to see him. His receptionist looked terrified, but he came out, calm as ever. I asked, "Did you pay my taxes?" He said, "Yes." I asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" He said, "Because you would have told me not to." I just stared at him. He looked tired, not defensive, not smug, just tired. I said, "You're not my keeper, Mark." He said, "I'm not trying to be." Then he sighed and said something that I don't think I'll ever forget. "Dad didn't want me to take care of you. He wanted me to protect you, even from yourself." I couldn't even speak after that. I turned around, walked out, and sat in my car for almost an hour. I cried so hard I thought I'd break something inside me. Not from anger this time, from recognition, because I finally understood what David had done. He hadn't written me out of control to punish me. He'd done it to make sure I couldn't self-destruct out of panic or pride. Mark wasn't being cruel. He was doing exactly what David had trained him to do. To be the gatekeeper neither Emily nor I could be. And David had known that about us for years. When I got home, I found more proof. A letter addressed to me, tucked inside one of David's old notebooks. I must have missed it before because it wasn't with the other estate documents. It wasn't long, just a few sentences in his handwriting, a little uneven from the illness. "If you're reading this, it means everything is in Mark's hands now. I know you'll be angry at first, but one day you'll see why I did it this way. You and Emily have always led with your hearts. That's what I loved most about you. And what scared me the most too. I couldn't always protect you while I was alive, but maybe I can now. Please don't hate me for it." I cried again reading that. I sat at the kitchen table and realized that the man I'd been calling controlling and cruel had simply been scared. Scared that he wouldn't be there to keep us from losing everything. I used to think control and love couldn't coexist. Now I know sometimes control is love, at least when it comes from fear of losing the people you care about. Emily still won't talk to Mark. She's angry in ways I can't reach anymore. I tried to explain that her father wasn't punishing us, but she doesn't want to hear it. She says I've taken his side. Maybe I have. I don't excuse everything David did, the secrecy, the lack of communication, but I understand it now, and I can't hate Mark anymore either. He came by last week, didn't stay long, just brought over some paperwork and told me the mortgage was officially paid off. He said it was simpler to settle everything at once. I thanked him, and he just nodded, like it was no big deal. But it was. It was everything. Before he left, I told him, "You're a lot like your father." He said, "I know, but this time, I could tell it didn't come from pride. It came from weight, the kind that settles on your shoulders when you're holding up more than you ever wanted to. Now it's just me in this house." Emily's moved in with a friend. The silence feels strange, but for the first time, it doesn't feel empty. I've started keeping a small notebook for myself, writing down every bill, every expense, tracking it all. It sounds simple, but it feels like reclaiming something I'd let go of for decades. Responsibility. Every Sunday I visit David's grave. I bring coffee, sit there for half an hour, and tell him about whatever I've managed that week. I don't ask him why anymore. I don't yell. I just talk. Last week I told him I'd finally forgiven him, and myself, because he was right. I couldn't be trusted with everything back then. I see that now, but I'm learning, slowly. And if love sometimes looks like boundaries and bruised pride, I can live with that, because in the end, He didn't just protect his legacy, he protected us from ourselves. I used to think I wanted freedom. Turns out, what I needed was a second chance to grow up, even if it came years too late. And for that, I'll always be grateful.